My name is Lambert Orkis. I occupy the position of principal keyboard with the National Symphony Orchestra since 1982. I was appointed to that position by Mstislav Rostropovich. And during that time, for 11 years, I was his pianist in recital in the Americas, North and South, Australia, and also in Asia. It was a privilege for me to do this, a unique experience, and in the process, I learned an awful lot about not only him as a musician, but also as a person and his workflow. Initially, when we were doing these recitals, he would play works for which he had played many, many years, decades, things like the Beethoven A major sonata, Brahms E minor. So I just kept quiet and followed his direction. There was very little time given for rehearsals. He expected me to know my parts, to figure him out quickly, and I did so. But as the years went by, we started to do repertoire that he was, so we say, that was new to him, new pieces. We worked through the Piazzolla Grand Tango, and there was a Schnittke piece based on the Peer Gynt suite. We learned them together, and I began to see his work process. But I think it was most clearly demonstrated to me when he would bring back a piece that he hadn't played for several decades. If I remember correctly, the Beethoven D minor sonata with a difficult fugue at the end. And for that, he would give more rehearsal time. I would come in and he'd say, "Oh, my friend Lambert, beloved, today I play like student." Well, some student. And he would have the score, his score in front of him, and he would be going through it carefully, looking always at the score. And it felt very comfortable for me, for him to be playing things a little bit under tempo. Then he said, "You know, my friend, now we go a little faster." And sure enough, he'd be going a little faster, and we'd go through this cycle several times. Then finally, he would say, "Okay, now we play up to tempo." He'd close the score, and it was like riding the back of a tiger, the leap that he would make. And I was amazed just how quickly he brought back music. He hadn't played a piece sometimes for 20 years. And within a couple hours, it was back, and it was super colossal, wonderful. And he would not reveal his workflow to me. I would ask him many times, and he wouldn't say it. But over those years, we would travel together. He always insisted I would sit with him in the plane. So the way it was arranged was usually cello, had its own seat. He was there, it was aisle. And then me. Many times there was no one next to me. And he would come over, and he would discuss things with me. And one day he was looking at me as I was studying a score and preparing it, and I was putting in harmonic analysis and notes about the structure. He says, "What you make there?" And I told him, he says, "Oh, very important. All my life I do this." And from that point on, he began to show me his scores and some of the music he was working on. And I was astonished how many marks there were in there. He explained to me that he wanted to be a composer, and that he had finished his life as a composer upon the completion of his second piano concerto. That he worked with Prokofiev. Prokofiev was his teacher in composition. And that he would go into his lessons, and Prokofiev would make these small changes. And he said it was the absolute work of genius, and that he, Rostropovich, didn't have that genius. Those small changes brought the piece to life. But he said he had that genius as a cellist. And that's what he decided to do, spend his life being with the cello. But that knowledge of composition is what informed his musical decisions, not only his personality and the great emotion, but he understood how pieces were put together. I would see him on the plane with his pencils, and he'd be working on a score of a new work he would be conducting for the symphony, a premiere. And he said, "Oh, this composer, he made a mistake here. I must fix. I must discuss with him." And he would indicate that. But for me, that process of documenting every decision, whether it be musical, and especially the technique to back up the music, putting it in the score so that he would have it for later reference. Sometimes it was rather amusing. He would look at his own part and said, "You know, this very, very stupid fingering. Who made this stupid fingering? Oh, me, idiot." And he would change it, but he had it there. And over time, I began to adopt that method myself. And these days, I certainly don't compare myself with Rostropovich at all, but I can bring back a piece much faster now because of that work habit. And I will be forever grateful to the maestro for his letting me in on part of his secret organizational life for music.